What's going on, Duck Nation? College Football Nation, this is UODuckBros back for another video. This is the recap of UCLA. In a game that was actually a little bit close, and this is misleading to an extent. It was closer than I thought it was, and I'm saying that in the most objective way that I can because they still absolutely killed them, like I essentially thought they were going to.
It just took longer.
It was different than I thought it was going to happen, though. They still scored the last 28 points of the game unanswered, which was awesome. But it was a really weird game for a while.
Mildly frustrating at times.
No, very frustrating at times. I had a collective another 4 handfuls of heart attacks during that game.
You're still alive, though.
I'm alive.
Man.
I might be setting personal and world records for most amount of heart attacks survived in a 6-month period. Because that's not even 6 months. It'd be like 3, I guess.
But anywho,
yeah, whatever. With that all aside, so this game was like the absolute opposite of what I was expecting. As I said in the prediction video, I thought that, Brett Hundley was going to get his yards because he's Brett Hundley. He's probably, in realism, probably, second best quarterback in the Pac-12? Besides Sean Mannion, of course. I'm not even going to get into that.
Heismanian?
Yeah. No, so, athlete-wise.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely number 2.
Definitely.
So
he's a stud.
I figured, he was going to be slinging the ball around pretty well. And, they were going to get their yards through the air and whatever. No. Not at all.
64 or 64 total yards?
I think it was 67 yards passing. He had,
right.
He had I think he had 70-something yards rushing, which over half of that came on one play, which I about pissed myself in. But Oregon's defense really cracked down in the passing game. They didn't give up really anything.
Nope. And a lot of those yards that Brett Hundley was getting was because the coverage was so incredibly good that, he took off running because that was really the only thing that was available, and all of our guys were downfield covering people. So, with the exception of a few scrambling plays, I thought, for the most part, Oregon did a pretty good job of doing containments on Hundley. I thought they really
made him uncomfortable.
They really made him uncomfortable, and they made a lot of plays when it counted. They got a couple key interceptions to swing the momentum back in our favor, and
especially on that 3rd and 15 where they got, because Patterson that picked that off.
Yep. And
if he wasn't right there for that, that's definitely probably like a 25-yard gain, and that takes a lot of the wind out of the sails.
I know we still didn't do that great against the run otherwise,
which is what I didn't expect. I thought, with all of their young, inexperienced running backs out on the field, that we were going to pretty much shut that down in a similar way that Stanford did, but
including the fact that they were starting 3 redshirt freshmen on the O-line, I thought they did a really good job opening up holes, and it took us a while to get adjusted and to start, stuffing the run, but we eventually started to get that under control. And in the second half, it was a completely different Ducks team that came out. They were playing a lot better defensive football, flying around, making plays, forcing turnovers, getting sacks, getting hurries, all those things that you want from a defense. And I thought for the most part, we did a pretty dang good job, and I was really pleased. And for Mariota, just another feather in his cap for having another game where it was tight for about 2.5, 3 quarters, and he comes out and then just pulls away like a champion.
Oh, yeah. People that didn't watch the game are gonna look at the stats. 230 yards and a touchdown. That's not really that much to write home about. But the biggest thing about it is that his completion percentage was like 75%, which is significantly better than what he's done for a good portion of the season. And in the second half, he did not throw an incomplete pass. He went 10 for 10 for, I think it was like 90-something yards and the touchdown. And like we said before, they scored 28 unanswered points to turn a game that was tied going into the fourth quarter into an absolute blowout. Just like that.
It took a while, but you knew eventually Oregon was going to wear them out. You just knew that UCLA's depth was going to start being a problem for them. And as the game wore on, we started getting more and more big plays, explosive plays. Byron Marshall had a really nice game.
That guy is
getting... And I'm telling you, the more and more we watch this kid,
he is like turning into a damn man.
He is like, incredible.
By the week. It's crazy to watch it. It's nice. And I know that DeAnthony didn't do great. I mean, he hasn't played in a month for one, but
it's nice to know that even in those circumstances where it was a game that was a bigger game, we didn't really need him. No. I mean, you always want to have, don't get it twisted. I don't want to say that we don't need DeAnthony Thomas. I'm just saying it's nice to have players that can still make plays.
I think what you're searching for is it didn't feel like we were like in desperate need of that play from him because we were getting it elsewhere.
Right. It's just nice to know other guys were able to step up basically and take on that, extra challenge of not having your best playmaker arguably on the field. So,
I think the other thing, and I think almost every Duck fan that lives on the earth and anywhere else, because I'm sure there's at least one alien out there that agrees with that, because whatever. It was really nice to know that in a game where we didn't necessarily look very good for 2.5 quarters, when it came down to it, we actually showed some resiliency, and we got the job done.
Yep.
That's the kind of thing that, like in the Stanford game last year, when the game was really tight like that, I don't want to say that we waffled under the pressure, but you didn't see that same kind of like, I don't know, what's the word, like the grit and the resolve that other teams like ours hadn't really had necessarily outside of maybe the 2010 team with the Cal game. But we had that type of, okay, let's get the damn thing done. And they went out and they got the thing done in the way that I think everybody's been waiting to see for a long time.
I think Oregon, the more Oregon has tests like this, the more and more people are going to have to start just believing that it's not just Oregon playing against teams that are far inferior. It's just Oregon, whether they're blowing somebody out by 50 or they're in a tight game late in the third quarter, no matter what the circumstance, they can pull out a game. And I think that's just going forward, just going to be much, much more experience and just something good going forward as we head to the postseason that Oregon can take and learn from and say that we have experience in these categories of that the pressure is elevated and we still perform under the bright lights and do a really good job, and everybody just steps up their game, and I thought it was awesome. It was really cool to see.
Now, one more thing to talk about, because it's been pissing me off ever since Saturday, is, and I'm sure that because you didn't even get to see the first, well, yeah, you kind of did. He was watching the game in Spanish at work, actually. It was really funny.
That was really hard to watch, because I was like, I just really want to hear Kirk's voice, but I'm hearing like dubbed over versions of somebody from Mexico that I've never heard before, and it was really weird.
Hey, at least you got the names in English. It wasn't like
some of them, if they didn't have like Spanish words for them or Spanish names for them, then they would use but otherwise it was like, I didn't even.
But getting back and to stay away from getting off topic, did it not seem like, namely Jordan Zumwalt in general, did it not seem like they were really making a concerted effort to hurt our players? Because that's what I saw. Zumwalt had the helmet-to-helmet contact on DeAnthony. There was the run up the middle that DeAnthony had where he ran and got like 2 yards, and then they blew the whistle, and the guys that were like the 3 guys that were holding
McCarthy.
McCarthy drug him back like 4 yards and then give him like a WWE suplex on the ground with no call. The helmet-to-helmet was a no call, even though it was blatantly obvious that it was one. And then Zumwalt on another play grabbed him and threw him pretty much, and then he got up and did essentially the Golden Tate, the waving thing like this, and there was no call for that either. Then there was also, the best part was Braylon Addison shook him out of his damn shoes, and Zumwalt on that play even stuck his leg out and tried to kick him, in the knee, is what it looked like to me. I just, I really, and I don't like to wish these types of things on players, but Zumwalt totally seems like a dick, and I really genuinely hope that when because he obviously has a knack for doing this to people. It's not like just one day he woke up in the morning and was like, hey, I'm going to try to hurt one of their best players today. So the way I see it, I really hope that when he goes out and does that to somebody else, that somebody's just going to stand up and just punch him right square in the face. Because I think that's something that we were all thinking. Yeah. I mean, when you're
I don't know. I mean, here's my dilemma. I think
it's more than just being physical, because that's one thing, but that was well beyond being just physical.
But here's the thing you have to consider, though, and I'm kind of on the fence about this because I understand that as a Duck fan, but I also understand that the referees have to start taking control of some of those situations, which they definitely blew it on every single one of those. It very well could have been a penalty once or a penalty twice, and they probably wouldn't have done it. But because they kept getting away with it, the referees were not doing anything about it.
They were pretty much looking the other way.
And here's the thing. I think, for a team like UCLA who knows that they're overmatched, I think they had to try and set a precedent and say, we're not going to get pushed around, and you're not going to just run by us, and we are going to be physical, and we're going to punch you in the mouth, and we're going to see how you respond. Well, Oregon won the game.
Mm-hmm. I like the way that they won the game too. They didn't we weren't running around getting up in their faces about it. Sure, when those things were happening, our players were kind of getting pissed off about it, but they weren't going and getting up in UCLA players' faces and jawing at each other and whatever. They just walked back to the line, run the next play.
Which is how a team that's focused and a team that has goals aspirations for a title should handle it. They shouldn't be getting caught up in the moment. They shouldn't be, trying to do the same things back in retaliation.
You get even.
You just rise above and you just score touchdowns and you make plays and you let your play talk for you. And I thought Oregon did a really good job of that. Not that there isn't going to be some of that from Oregon players because we've seen it before, but for the most part, it's they're out there trying to win. They're out there competing. They're hitting each other. They're playing, and so it's going to happen. You're going to get guys that are going to get chippy out there, but it's just a fine line. I don't know. I can't say either way that I think he's trying to hurt anybody. I just think he was playing hard, and he definitely was talking a lot of smack. But you can only they're competing. So what I wonder is, where do they draw the line for this stuff? Does somebody have to have a season-ending injury from something like that before they actually, say, okay, this is getting out of hand? Well, it is the NCAA.
Do they have to wait before, when he goes and suplexes a guy that a huge fight breaks out because somebody decides to fight back? Do they decide to do something about it? I mean, they need to. I think that before it gets out of hand, they need to do something about it now before something like that does happen, because you're playing with these with players' well-being essentially.
Yeah.
Football in itself is a violent sport. I'm not trying to say that it's not, because it is, but there are certain areas that you can't go into that where you're it's one thing to when you get in a gang tackle and you kind of play through the whistle, you tackle a guy, but you don't pick him up and do a back suplex where he lands on his head and could potentially screw up his neck. That's what I'm talking about. It's stuff like that. It's just there's no room for that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a tough subject, and it can definitely be talked about for a long time. But I think really, we need to just be happy we won the game. We're obviously ecstatic we won the game. We're moving on to a big game this coming Thursday, and I think this was a really nice test for us going into the next game, carrying the momentum.
It was. UCLA is a quality team. They have lost 2 games in a row, but those were against
the 2 best teams in the conference.
And arguably the best team in the nation.
So
they're a damn good team. They have a really good front seven. What is it? What is his name? Kendricks?
Michael Kendricks was awesome.
Kendricks. Anthony Barr is really,
as advertised.
He is
and
really good. He is going to be playing on Sundays. Zumwalt, as much as I don't like him just because of that situation, he's a damn good player. I'm not going to say he's not. Their front seven in general, they're good.
They're gonna be really scary in the next couple years.
There's still a possibility that Oregon may have to play them again.
Mm-hmm.
And while I still think the same outcome is going to happen in a different fashion, because I think they'll be more prepared for that, it's still going to be another good quality matchup.
So, anyway, I think we've kind of touched on all points. I think it's about time to sign off to the Duck Nation. But
I would say so for now, but there's a lot more material coming up. We've got some other topics of interest that you guys will want to check out, so just
stick around.
Stick around, stay tuned. This is UODuckBros saying thank you guys for watching, and as always,
go Ducks.
Go Frank Dukes.